So it's a pretty fun experience.
All right, we're back. Let's dive right into it. On today's show, we're going to talk about what little news there is around the baseball world and how it pertains to the San Francisco Giants. And then, hey, we're going to start diving into this roster since we are approaching spring training. And before we know it, pitchers and catchers will be reporting, and they'll be throwing some baseballs around down there in Old Town Scottsdale. We'll start with the outfield. We'll touch on everybody, at least on this active roster on their website. I love how it says nothing like it, baby. San Francisco Giants, nothing like it. I mean, we could see quite a year in 2024. It'll be very interesting. Interesting in the outfield. Who'll be playing out there? Who's maybe slated for AAA? Who's maybe going to have a DH role? So we'll touch on that. But let's dive into what little bit of news there is around the baseball world. So little that we're reading comments from the Blue Jays GM or whoever Ross Adkin is. But you do know that Matt Chapman was on the Toronto Blue Jays and is a free agent and is a target for said San Francisco Giants. So we have to read into, hey, what interest do the Blue Jays have in keeping him? It would worry me a little bit if the team he was just on for the last couple of years don't want any part of him. Now, maybe that's just monetarily they don't want any part of him, but Ross Adkins kind of threw some cool water on re-signing Matt Chapman over there in Toronto. He says, quote, "We feel really good about the team we have." And then specifically about the third base position, he says, "We have opportunities to deploy different lineups and different players playing third base potentially." And they list 3 different players. So it's perhaps possible that the Toronto Blue Jays are out on Matt Chapman, or maybe they're just trying to downplay any potential interest they may have. It does concern me that, the team that he was on for the last couple of years may or may not want anything to do with him. But let's get into our own players on our own roster, on our own nothing like it San Francisco Giants. And let's start in the outfield, and let's go one by one and kind of talk about each guy's situation and kind of where I see things to start the year. Look, I think high level overview, you're going to play Jung Hoo Lee because you just signed him to $100 million. He's absolutely going to get some playing time. Mitch Haniger, you're paying like $19 million and has a player's option for $17 million next year. So you're going to give him every opportunity to prove that free agent contract that you gave him last year. Conforto is going to see some time because, again, you have signed him for big money for this year. He opted in for $18 million. Now, he may see more of a DH role than anything else. So if he's slated in DH and you're going to play Jung Hoo Lee, maybe in center field, Mitch Haniger is going to play one of the corner outfield spots. I think your best bet is to put your best defensive outfielder also in the opening day lineup, Mike Yastrzemski. So high level overview, I think the opening day lineup will feature something like Lee, Haniger, Yastrzemski, with Conforto playing DH. But let's take a closer look at each one of these outfielders. Haniger, gosh, I can't believe he's already 33 years old. This is another questionable free agent signing from Farhan last year.
Big deals.
I mean, he signed for $19 million this year and 17.5 player option next year. So if he plays like he did in 2023, where he hit 6 home runs and batted .209, he's absolutely going to take that player's option for $17 million because that money's not going to be on the table anywhere around the league. So big year for Mitch Haniger, big year for Farhan. Does he whiff on another free agent signing?
This is the week.
This is why I don't want Farhan to be spending some of the free agent money that the Giants have. Here's an example from last year that certainly hasn't paid off. Now, hey, Mitch Haniger could possibly return to his 2021 form where he hit 39 home runs and 100 RBIs. Lord knows we would love that in San Francisco if we saw even a glimpse of that. So big year for Mitch Haniger. I would imagine he's going to be in the starting lineup. I mean, this is not a guy you're going to be bench. Now he's always hurt, so it's very possible he starts the year on the disabled list or somewhere around it. But he's a guy you're going to give every opportunity to play. Another guy you're going to give every opportunity to play is Conforto. Opted in, he's making $18 million. He's an unrestricted free agent after the season. So it's a big year personally, professionally for Michael Conforto. Because if he plays like he did last year, Although we saw glimpses of what made him a first overall pick from the New York Mets in 2014 and have some pretty good years for the Mets. If he hits 239 with 15 home runs and 400 at bats and probably a below average outfielder, $18 million is not going to be on the table for him in 2025. So Conforto is playing for his next contract, likely won't be with the Giants. I guess there's a scenario where if Conforto does play well, maybe he does have some trade value toward the trade deadline. He is making quite a bit of money, but he does have some, again, left-handed power. So a contending team down the stretch that did need a left-handed bat, maybe there would be some potential trade value for Conforto, but again, he's going to have to be playing well. And if he's playing well, you might want to just ride out the season with him and see if you can make squeak into one of those wild card spots. Mikey Yastrzemski, God, he's getting old. 33 years old, big year for him. I thought he was coming up on a free agent year, but I guess he still has one more year of arbitration. $7.9 million. While that seems like kind of a lot, it's actually sort of a bargain, I guess, for this guy. He's probably our best defensive outfielder now that we haven't seen Jung Hoo Lee yet. But this is a guy who you're going to play in probably one of those corner outfield spots. He's a guy who's probably going to see some time in center field. And again, the bat hasn't been amazing in quite a while. 233 last year, 15 home runs. But the defense is plus, and we can only hope that he maybe returns to some of his 2019, 2020 form where he hit over 270 with power. Gosh, if he could return to anywhere close to that, because he's a very good outfielder. Key player for us this year. Bargain contract, all things considered. I guess he maybe does have some trade value because he is cost controlled and it isn't outrageous salary, but I don't think a lot of teams are beating down our door for Mike Yastrzemski.
They are what they are.
Jung Hoo Lee, baby. Hey, looking at this contract a little more, this guy's gonna have to be good. Only making $7.8 million this year. Ramps up to $16 million in 2025 and then jumps all the way to $22 million through the last 3 years of the deal. You pay a guy $22 million. That's what, again, I said, this guy has to hit first or second in your lineup. At no point in this contract can this guy be a bench player or be hitting 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th. You don't pay guys who hit 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th in your lineup $20 million. So nobody's really seen this guy play. So we will see what happens. Gosh, it's hard to trust some of the money that Farhan Zaidi has spent on free agent bats while GM of the Giants. Here's two examples here. Haniger and Conforto actually really haven't worked out too well for the Giants yet. And so we've already thrown big money at this guy, $20 million. It's got to hit first or second in your lineup.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Blake Sabol, he might be hitting first, second, and third down in AAA this year. A guy we scooped up. I think the Reds picked him in the Rule 5 draft and then traded them to us. He had to stay on our active roster all last season, or he would have had to been offered back up either to the Pirates or to the Reds. I don't know how that rule would have worked. But because Sabol stayed on the active San Francisco Giants all of last season, we now retain his rights, and I believe he has minor league options. So my guess, barring some injuries, either at the catcher position or possibly the outfield position, Blake Sabol is probably slated for AAA. Good for him because he'll get a lot of at-bats. He'll get a lot of time perhaps at different positions. You can put him out there, I guess, in the outfield. You can put him behind the plate. And any type of injuries to catcher or to outfield, you can call up Blake Sabol, and he will be primed and ready because he's getting much needed at-bats in AAA. That's where I think he's probably headed. But hey, we have players made of glass over here in Conforto and Haniger, so you never know. Sabol could make the opening day lineup. Austin Slater, big year for him personally and professionally, making $4 million. He's an unrestricted free agent next season. He's 31 going on 32 years old. My guess is he'd like to be playing baseball somewhere next year. He'd love to be making $4 million or more. So huge year for Austin Slater. I love the way he hits left-handed pitching. And that was kind of his role last year in the Giants in the Gabe Kapler platoon system.
Processes in our practices.
Austin Slater virtually always led off against left-handed pitching. And hey, I don't have the splits up, but they were pretty good. This guy does rake left-handed pitching pretty well. He's an average to, I would say, a below average outfielder. He makes some very questionable throws in the outfield. He gets the balls okay, but sometimes he makes very, very questionable decisions throwing the ball. I know even Krupp and Kipe have questioned some of his decisions in the outfield before. It's pretty rare for them to comment on something like that, but big year for Austin Slater. Is he a trade candidate? Hey, I don't think you're going to get anything for him unless there's a team out there who needs a right-handed bat who is almost an exclusive platoon guy against left-handed pitching. I don't think he has much trade value. His contract isn't obviously a burden. $4 million is pretty light. He probably makes the opening day roster and plays a similar role to what he did under Gabe Kapler, and he will bat against left-handed pitching because you don't have an abundance of right-handed hitters on this team. Because one of your young right-handed hitters, Luis Matos, who we got a pretty good glimpse of last year, 228 major league at bats, 2 home runs, batted .250. We saw some of the flashes from him, some of the plate discipline. I think some of the work in the outfield, needs some work. I don't know if he's a center fielder. He may be in one of the corners, but he's only 21 years old. So we're not going to give up on him. We should actually be encouraged by what we saw last season. Much like Blake Sabol, I think unless there's an injury or you need him up at the major league roster, I would actually love to say, hey, I want to play the kids this year. I want to give them every opportunity. But you're paying a couple guys in Haniger and Conforto $18-20 million. So these guys aren't going to be riding your bench if they're healthy. It's just not. They're just not. And I know it'd be easy for us to comment on YouTube or on a podcast and say, well, you should just bench these guys and play the kids. It's not going to happen. If Haniger and Conforto are healthy with the money you're paying them, especially consider Haniger has a player option for next year to come back, you're absolutely playing these guys. So one of them is taking a corner outfield spot and one of them is likely DHing. So it doesn't, and you just signed this dude from Korea for $20 million. So there's a second outfield spot. Haniger has one outfield spot. Lee has another outfield spot. Conforto is playing. Whether or not he plays in the outfield or he DHs, he's playing. If these 3 guys are healthy, that leaves one outfield spot. I think it goes to Yastrzemski because he's actually your best defender. Sabol goes to AAA. Slater plays a bench role. Matos, you need to get at bats in AAA. You don't let this guy ride the bench or, play 1 or 2 days a week. There's no point in that. Let him get seasoning in AAA, and sooner rather or later, we'll see him again in 2024 taking major league at bats. When one of these guys gets hurt, when one of these guys get traded, or when one of these guys just flat out sucks. Another guy we did get a glimpse at is our 2019 4th round pick, Tyler Fitzgerald. Very small sample size, 32 at bats, 2 home runs. Hey, they have him in the outfield, but he also saw some time on the infield. He had a great year at AAA in 2023. 20 home runs, batted .287 and 415 at bats in Sacramento. So he's probably another guy who's fighting for some of the depth spots, maybe a bench role on the team, may end up back in Sacramento, may end up on another team. He's a guy that certainly could get a look. And if he starts playing to the caliber of what he was doing down in 2013 in the minors, his totals for the minors in 2023 was pretty good. 22 home runs, 292 average, strikes out a ton. But when he does get on base, got a little bit of speed, 32 stolen bases. So we like that too. Only 3 caught stealings. So he's another guy to kind of take a look at. So again, to recap, Haniger's playing. He's taking one of the outfield spots. Conforto's playing, likely taking the Jock Peterson role and playing DH. Jung Hoo Lee is playing because you just strap that guy up with a whole bunch of cash. And he's making 20 million in the last 3 years of that deal. that only leaves one spot to really start the year if all these guys are healthy, which is asking a lot. So I think it's going to be Yastrzemski, Sabol's in AAA, Slater's on the bench, Matos in AAA, and Fitzgerald either as a bench role or back in AAA. So that's what I have for you guys today. We will come back later this week and get to the infield spots. We know how the catching kind of rotation will shape out, but we'll touch on the Joey Bart situation, and then we can get into the bullpen and this starting rotation. But I hope you guys have had a good day. The San Francisco Giants, ladies and gentlemen, have not been eliminated yet from the 2024 postseason. So hold your head up high, and we will see you later.
Or you can see it on TV.